Hi Akash, I'm Dr. Smita. Welcome to NXT podcast. I'm really happy finally we are able to get some time to discuss something that you're super famous about nowadays, right? So, welcome to the show.
Firstly, Dr. Smita, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And famous might not be the right word, but trying to create more awareness through podcasts like this. But again, thank you so much for having me here.
Times of India is a great platform to speak anything regarding AI, especially in the space that you are working, because it will reach to exactly the right audience that's required. It has a great reach as well. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And before we get into more conversation, if you can quickly tell us what you do, where are you right now, and where do
Sure.
you, how your journey started?
I'm Akash. I'm the head of AI for a biotech company in New York called HistoWiz, where we are in
Mhm.
the preclinical histology research space, and we mostly cater to like pharma, biotech, and academic institution, and it's a contract research organization (CRO) where we
Mhm.
get tissue samples, we do histology processing, we digitize the slides, and then it goes onto the platform, and that's where I come in. Like what happens
Okay.
once the slide gets digitized? You
Mhm.
sort of have the platform to manage the images, analyze the images, run AI tools, and all that. So that's what I do here at HistoWiz, and I have been with the company for close to 4 years now. And I got my PhD from joined Carnegie Mellon and UPMC Medical School in digital pathology. So the department was ComBio, but my specialization was in digital pathology, where I mostly focused on building explainable AI for breast cancer diagnosis. So
Mhm.
essentially, my PhD was to address why is like early stages of breast cancer like mostly misdiagnosed, and there is so much of disagreement among the clinicians.
For normal people to understand what exactly is digital pathology.
Sure. So, pathology, you can imagine it's the field of like medicine for diagnosis. It could be cancer or any other disease type. So, to give a very simple example, say you go to a physician, they
Mm.
ask you to do a biopsy, and you get the biopsy done, and your tissue sample gets sent to a lab with all the histology processing. And there are some technical terms like the grossing, embedding, and all that, but we will leave that for today. And then what happens is you put the tissue on a glass slide, like a physical glass slide, which then gets sent to the pathologist and they see it under the microscope. Now, there
Mm.
is one stage that comes after that, which is say you have those physical glass slides, but instead of sending it under the microscope, you send it to like a large whole slide image scanner. Basically, you take like an image of the tissue
Mhm.
under the WSI scanner, and now you digitize that entire tissue into a full 40x resolution, the
Yeah.
resolution at which the pathologist looks at the image. So that's the portion of digitization. And now digitization allows you, like, it opens up several possible avenues. Like, you can now share the image remotely to any other city. You can run some intelligent tools, AI analysis, and all that. So this is the field of digital pathology, which largely involves like digitizing the pathology labs, which was always thought to be like under the microscope and seeing physical glass slides under the microscope.
Okay. Since when all these things are happening?
Sure. Actually, it's a very new field, Dr. Smita. So only
Mm.
in 2017, US FDA approved using digital scanners for
Mm.
primary diagnosis. So it's a very new field. Before that, the slides were getting digitized, but they were not allowed for any diagnostics when it comes to
Yeah.
patient care. It was mostly being used for like drug discoveries and preclinical studies and all that. So
Mhm.
2017 comes in, and then the FDA approves using some of the like digital scanners. There are
Mm.
FDA approved scanners from Philips, there is Leicas, and of the world.
Mm.
So then pandemic hits. Now suddenly, the field of medicine cripples, and there is a state of emergency everywhere. Now pathology was positioned very uniquely in a way that it would have been of tremendous importance if the slides were digitized, and the
Mm.
pathologists who are not critical to be in the emergency care could sit in the house and do the diagnosis and send it for
Mm.
rapid treatment
Yeah.
testing and all that. So pandemic is when a lot of investment happened in the digital pathology companies, and we came to know the importance of going digital. So and from then on, there is this very slow adoption. Actually, there are
Mm,
even in the US, only a fraction, maybe like only 5 to 10% of the labs are digital. And
mm, mm.
in India, I think just 2 or 3 hospitals in all over India, they have gone
Mm.
digital. Like Tata
Oh.
Memorial being one of it, and also not in its entirety. It's only like
Mm.
few labs within the hospital that are using digital pathology for diagnostics, but we are seeing a very rapid adoption here.
I have worked on projects where we were looking at tele solutions, right? Tele ICU and tele
Yes,
all the centricity solutions that are there.
right,
Now, here, especially in India, it is so valuable. We cannot have super specialty doctors everywhere in
correct.
all the cities,
Yes,
wherever it is required, but patients are everywhere. It's
yes,
not that patient getting diseases only where the hospitals are available. It's not like that, right?
correct, correct.
And when we have such technology, it totally helps for a doctor. Imagine if I am practicing in tier 4, I
Yeah,
have a patient, I take the reports digitally, I send it to my friend who's probably in a metro city, super specialist, not even abroad,
very quick.
anywhere.
Yep.
And then you get the diagnosis done. And that's the beauty of what you are doing. And now with AI, then again, there's so many good things are happening. But then you totally worked on this, right?
Yeah.
So what was it fundamentally failing as a system? That's where the probably the digitalization or digitization with AI was required.
I think a than failure, I would say, like there was like a huge burden of cases on the pathologist.
Hmm.
That's one thing, and
Hmm.
the number of like cancer cases and number of like people going getting diagnosis increased,
Yeah.
and that put a large burden on the pathologist to do like rapid sign outs. So that's one thing wherein there was a push towards more digitization and intelligent tools to speed up the process. So,
Hmm.
and the second thing is we always talk about, and that's what my PhD was, which was on the discordance or like diagnostic disagreement among the clinicians, wherein not even across like different cities, but within the doctors within the same hospital, they tend to like disagree with the diagnosis. And for breast cancer, which is my specialization, now I understand what is the reason. Because
Hmm.
there is like so much of subjectivity in the features, and there's so much happening there. So I think that also adds to the time for diagnosis, because
Hmm.
it's not like okay, fine, like I don't want to count these like mitosis cells like within the tissue because I have like 100 cases in front of me. I would rather spend time on that than spending hours on this one case, because there are like 100 patients like getting diagnosed. So I think it's like a trade-off which leads to misdiagnosis. So that's the bottleneck of the current anatomic pathology workflow in the
Yeah.
system, which is where digitization plays a huge role.
Correct. The histopathology plays a very critical role, not just to diagnose, but also to create a protocol that's required to manage the patient, right? So all the stages and all are defined
Yeah,
based on the histopathology report. So it's super critical to take a next decision, and the time is important, correctness is important,
yeah,
and that's why what we are speaking is important over here.
yeah,
And now, see, you are from India
yeah.
and you have studied over here, you have studied over there, you are working over there, especially in pathology space. What India is doing different, or how US or Europe is doing different than India in this space that we are speaking?
So again, taking a step back, so 2017, the US FDA approves using the digital scanners, right? So then AI started becoming so popular in the medical imaging space, and it was always popular, but it didn't get the stage to take off, and the pandemic set the stage for it. And then there were so many companies, so much of funding that happened that sort of like explored, okay, we can go digital. So there were a lot of companies in US and Europe that came in. And in that sense, I think the India's like patient burden is way higher than like foreign institutions. And it's more like we have we have the problem, like what is the problem now, and let's go and solve it.
Hmm.
But I think going digital lot requires like some sort of infrastructure changes, and recruitment and training of the pathologists to go digital, start using those platforms and things like that. I think and also the patient reimbursement. Like, for example,
Mm,
it's a huge like topic of discussion even in the US. Like, who is going to pay
mm,
for a digitized solution? Is it the patient? Is it the
mm,
hospital? Is it the so I think like, but India is like catching up to the speed right now because the field itself is maturing. Like initially, it was all chaos. Like, okay, like what does it mean to go digital? What are the regulatory frameworks? Like, what are the imaging formats? In radiology, it was
mm,
all DICOM. In pathology, every scanner started like spitting out its own image format. The
mm,
Hamamatsu scanners, the like the Kalzi scanners, and all that. Now the front end image viewer were not able to adopt these multiple image formats. Like how does it entail? Some hospitals
mm,
were like, we don't want to use any cloud service. We want to have
mm.
all the data local to the hospital. Now, how do you
Yeah.
adapt the platform to do that? So there were like so many different discussions, and I am part of some of the workforces in US, and I think
Mm,
India is having like a soft adoption, and it's seeing a value right now, and that's why like the Tata Memorials and the Astro CMIs and all are catching up, but they are still in the like the research phase more than like the adoption phase. But
mhm.
we are still catching up.
Okay. And how's the regulatory environment in India? Are we FDA has the approval,
Yeah.
but do we have approval to use it as for the diagnosis and treatment? Do we have different regulations or we don't need to go for it?
No, I think India has its own like country regulations, but
Of course.
yeah,
Mhm.
the US FDA, the scanners that has been approved are like it could be used worldwide, the Philips scanners and all that, and
Mm,
still it's being used in some of the hospitals in India.
mm,
But having said that, like scanner just gives you the access to like a camera. That's it.
mm.
Like now there
True.
is the software setup and the cloud services and all that has to be regulatory approved as well, so that there is no
Mm,
data breach, and then the like the transfer of data is quite seamless, and it's at a very high resolution. Like for example, we prefer like a 1080p for recording the podcast. Now just imagine for a pathologist, they have to look at the data at 40x.
yeah.
If
Yeah.
you lose the resolution, you're gone. Like won't be able to see the cell counts and the quality of the cells and all that, which will lead to misdiagnosis, which is, and I think one misstep, the adoption will see a delay of 1 to 2 years easily. I would love to, I would be open for any of the audience here to have like active collaborations to explore what we are doing here, what best can we do in the Indian system, and how best we can collaborate.
Yeah, yeah, that'll definitely, and I have a couple of more questions regarding that later. Okay, so we are talking about solving the problem for the pathologist first.
Right, right,
Okay, then we'll go to the oncologist, and later we'll go to probably the patient.
sure.
So when I'm talking about solving the problem for the pathologist, we are saying that earlier you were doing slides, now you have digital, you can send it through emails and other things. How AI is helping pathologist over here?
Sure. I think the first thing is going digital, because if you don't have the
Mhm.
data, you can't run any AI tools on top of it. AI also saw its own fair share of like, I would say chaos or drama within the space of
Mhm.
digital pathology. And I think drama is the right word, because there were companies which came in who said, okay, I'm going to have an AI to diagnose cancer. And then they got some patents and papers published. They got like millions of dollars of funding in US, and then came the FDA, and they failed the FDA testing. Then they said,
Mm,
okay, you know what? Like I'll leave diagnosing cancer in its entirety. I will take like small baby steps. Like can I diagnose the tumor regions in the prostate sample? Like very specific organ, specific cancer type, and a specific task. So then it got an FDA approval, and then like the pathologists were like, okay, but that's something which I can do it within seconds. I don't need an
mm,
AI for that. So we are also seeing like the swinging of the interest among the pathologists to use the AI app. But for now, I think where it's helping is those tasks which the pathologists take a lot of time, and that's what I say
mm,
all the time. And that was my PhD focus as well, which is, as an AI or computer scientist, you have to talk to the domain expert, who is like a clinician, doctor, pathologist, not like at the later stage after you get your algorithms like published and all. Where at a very
mm.
early stage, sit with them, ask what their problem is, and sit on either sides of the microscope. And I
Yeah.
think some tasks which require like a lot of time, like cell counting, it could be detecting those subtle features within the tissue. That's where
Mm.
they would need help, and that's where AI is sort of helping them to accelerate the process.
Okay. I told you my best friend is a pathologist,
Yeah,
and I can imagine she'll be listening to all these things
right.
once it is published. Let's talk about now oncologists, right? It's of a great benefit to them because they
Yeah,
are the one those who need to decide the treatment protocol. Talk to the patient. So they are the one those who are facing the patient.
true.
Pathologists are like back end artists, those who are doing the important work, but end of the day it's an oncologist who's facing the patients. How important it is for them to implement digital, the technology that's available in, especially in pathology. Give me example for breast cancer because that's your specialization.
So the thing is, I think first thing to keep it simple is to have the right diagnosis for the patient once the tissue gets
Mhm.
sent in. So I think now we understood, like, digitization has its own sort of like advantages. Like, one is allowing these AI tools to speed up their process, to reduce
Mhm.
misdiagnosis, highlighting regions which is the most diagnostically relevant. And then we have telepathology. So, like, you can sort of discuss the cases, second opinions, and all that. It's much faster. So
Mhm.
say the diagnosis goes right and it gets sent, like, to the oncologist, and now they
Mhm.
can compare all these like clinical reports, clinical notes. Now what we are seeing as a major advantage of digital pathology is comparing historical reports, historical
Yeah.
notes. So
Mhm.
that's a very big advantage because we are seeing hospitals here and we are working on some projects wherein there are 10,000 slides which are digitized. See, a new
Mhm.
patient comes in, and there is an app called as image similarity search. So now you can look at similar looking breast tissue or like colon tissue and compare the clinical notes.
Mhm.
Because you would have also tried, for example, say 5 years before, there came a patient with this particular subtype or diagnosis, and you gave the treatment, and now the patient is all right. So it's tried and tested. So it's immensely important. Say
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
pathologist or oncologist changes over a period of time, but they'll
Mhm.
still have
True.
access. Say the oncologist like retires, say
Yeah.
he or she has an experience of 40-50 years, but you still have
Mhm.
access to those clinical notes, reporting,
Correct.
and marking the regions and all that. It's all digital and
Yes.
stored. So it's of like tremendously
Mhm.
useful.
Correct. Correct. I understand. Like I remember from my college, like our few of our professors were so excellent with histopathology and their diagnosis and everything, and
Yeah.
how. And I still feel that I wish I could have recorded all those things, especially when I now work with startups and they ask me where to access the data,
Okay.
and because of that, I have one question that assume one model is been built for breast cancer, digitize it, and then AI helping it, and there is a regulatory approval associated with that.
Mm.
Do we need to replicate the regulatory approval and everything for other kinds of cancer, because cancers are different, right? Cells are different and everything.
Yeah.
So how
No.
that works?
No, absolutely. I think the AI systems has to be regulated for every single cancer type. But
Hmm.
again, I would say, like, you don't have to integrate AI to go digital.
Hmm.
For example, we there was a world of cassettes to listen to music, right? Before
Hmm.
the iPod and all that came into play. So
Hmm.
now you have Spotify that uses AI
Hmm.
to have your music taste. But there was this era of iPod, and then
Yeah.
and Walkman and all that, wherein the songs were digitized, and with that you
Correct.
were able to get access to like millions of songs.
Millions of
So I
songs.
think
Yes.
the advantage of going digital, AI is of course a big part, but going digital has its own advantage. For example, the pathologist will draw annotations as they do the case signouts. Now those
Hmm.
annotations are recorded and could be easily accessed at a later point. So for that,
Hmm.
a separate AFDA approval is not required. It's all like manual annotations that they do. But if it's a very specific AI case, then definitely like you will need a regulatory approval, like what it was trained on, how many
Hmm.
pathologists trained it, what were the different studies and all. Yes, definitely.
Uh, and when we are trying to implement this digitization in any hospital, okay, and the whole staff might not be trained in how to manage this, right? Like we are
True,
speaking about basic technicians to
true,
the
true.
staff who needs to do the staining to
Yeah.
everything, right? Now, what's the process has been followed over there? If a hospital needs to digitize their pathology lab, who all needs to? It's just not the pathologist who needs to get trained.
No, absolutely. I think everybody who are involved in getting the physical slides still remain the same. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is the histotechnician or like lab professionals and all, and then you have the whole slide image scanner. So all that has to be done is getting trained to place those physical slides onto the scanner, like the blocks and things like that, and then it gets digitized and gets sent to a remote image viewer, and which then the pathologist can access. So
Hmm.
there is not much like infrastructure or change that
Okay.
needs to be done. It's just like in a local space, you place the scanner, then everything is connected through the cloud or local server within hospital. And of course, you need to have like a computer screen in the pathologist office,
Hmm.
and that's about it. But to
Yeah.
use the platform, use the viewer, the pathologist have to be trained to do that. And we are seeing some conservative pathologist who still wants to go see slides under the microscope, and that is slowly shifting. And the reason why it's shifting is because one of the reason is also that we are seeing more and more robust frameworks like going, because previously there was
Hmm.
a slide viewer which is to take some seconds to load, right? And then if you go to 40x resolution, just imagine you have to wait like a minute or two for it to like go to that particular resolution. You can just imagine
Hmm.
like a Google map, and you want to
Yeah.
go to a higher resolution, it takes like a 1 to 2 minutes.
Hmm.
Then it doesn't make any sense. So
Correct.
that's when the cloud providers and softwares worked hard to make sure that there's a pyramidal structure for those images, and it takes like
Hmm.
within milliseconds to load those high resolution. So I think now we are
Okay.
seeing like a good adoption, but still, to answer your question, there has to be some training involved, but it's not gargantuan shift for the training. So
Yeah, and we saw this transition happening for radiology space,
yeah.
and the adoption was like flawless. Like they were able to adapt it so quickly,
Okay.
and so much of research that is happening with AI tools and other things. I'm really lucky to interact with lots of good startups here. And I know that when initially there is some kind of a discussion that happened, but once they start implementing, they started using it. Like we saw that happening for robotics, we robotic
True.
surgery, in radiology, and it's there. Like if
Yeah.
you have such a good robotic surgery infrastructure available in many hospitals in India. You have used this word called explainable AI.
Right.
Okay, what exactly is that?
Again, so we started thinking about explainability or XAI back in in 2016, 2017, even
Hmm.
before Elon Musk bought the domain name of XAI. And my PhD advisor has like a trademark copyright for the word XAI, and in the medical imaging space. And it came from the training that we got at like Carnegie Mellon, and and they are the pioneers in AI machine learning, because my
Hmm.
PhD advisor, he was working under Dr. Jeffrey Hinton, whom we know as the godfather of AI. And so the thing is, we started thinking about explainability in this space like close to like a decade ago. And so what it means is basically very simple. If you have any AI system, can it talk the language of the expert? That's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
In very simple way. It could be
Yeah.
for anything. It could be for pathology, retail, fashion, real estate, or whatever it is. Like, could it talk the language? How you as a human have adapted to make decisions, to take actions. Can the AI come in between to do that? So in the
Hmm.
field of pathology, what happens is now we are talking about like images, and there are so many like image algorithms out there, like computer vision, which does like segmentation, detection, and all that. So now the AI cannot just come in and go through this black box deep learning framework and give results without any explanations. And now, because it's all about trust, right? Like people tell, like
Hmm.
doctors are the second god, and we trust them. I think trust is a very big factor, and that's when we go to hospital, we trust that okay, they'll do the right thing, so that we are back being healthy. So I think when AI comes into play, there is so much of gray areas which has to be taken very seriously when we develop the system. So that's what I mean by explainable AI. Like how can you make the AI sort of be accountable for
Hmm.
the predictions that it does, and things like that. So
Yeah, I agree that especially in India, solving problems with digital technology with AI I'm a big supporter of that. It's been years we are not able to allow doctors to actually get settled in smaller cities. Patients still have to travel. Infrastructure is not so much accessible. We do have like smartphones in everyone's, like even any farmer or anyone, they have the smartphone, but may not have the medical facilities, especially the advanced technology available.
Right.
And this definitely helps. But when we look at the patient related thing, the clear cut advantages are there. They're getting the diagnosis faster. Of course,
Yeah.
money, who's going to pay, and insurance and other things that needs to be solved,
Yeah.
which probably you and me sitting over here can't take any kind of insights on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But keeping that part aside, it's important for patient to get diagnosed correctly, get diagnosed on time, get the right treatment, especially in cancer, when we know that the early diagnosis can save lives,
Yeah.
right? Like so much of advantages of there of early diagnosis, early intervention. We spoke about it so much. But my concern whenever the technology intervention is there is the medical legal aspect. Assume that the diagnosis is happening
Yeah.
with the help of technology. Pathologist probably is there, but then majority of the diagnosis is happening through the digitization or with AI. In case of a medical legal issues, misdiagnosis, wrong diagnosis, anything, delayed diagnosis,
Sure.
who is responsible in such case?
Yeah, I think we're talking about the from the regulatory standpoint, like who is responsible. I think definitely like the hospitals are accountable for
Hmm.
any like regulatory like fallbacks, and that is why we are taking like very small steps when we see the adoption of digital pathology. So when radiology was digitized, right? Actually, I just want to give you this number, which came in the RSNA conference in Chicago, the Radiology Society, which is like the largest conference in radiology. So they say, yes, a radiology field was digitized so many years back, but still the adoption of AI is just 12 to 14%
Hmm.
for all the radiology, so there are radiologists who use the digital images for diagnosis, but still they don't rely on using AI to look at the features. So even for pathology here, I think we are talking about like digitizing the pathology lab, and then as a next step you have these AI which are assistive tools and not decision making tools. The decision
Hmm.
still lies in the hands of the expert, which is the pathologist, but still AI could sort of assist you. Like it's more like, for example, you have this large playground, and now you have some diagnostically important region in like one corner. Can you use AI to just get your human eyes in that region first, so that you don't miss it out? And it doesn't mean that the AI will do the feature extraction and do the diagnosis, but it guides you at the right places to speed up the process. So
Hmm.
I think we have to take soft approach and see how much it should be back and forth. Like for example,
Hmm.
one, we want to see if we digitize the pathology labs, how many patients were actually positively impacted, and the hospital as well, how many case sign-outs were they able to do, and now integrating this AI system to detect these relevant regions, like is it actually helping the pathologist or not? And then
Hmm.
I think we will talk about more sophisticated things like detecting tumor and detecting necrosis and all that. But I think that's why there are so many I don't know, parallel studies that's going on. So before being like approved by the hospital. So, but again, to answer your question, who will take the responsibility? I would say it's the pathology department that has to come into play.
Hmm. Tell me one thing, like you are building this in US, the regulations are different over there. Ecosystem is pretty different, right?
Yeah.
It's very, I'll say, centralized. In ours, we work in silos. We have private, we have government, we have smaller hospital, bigger hospital, we have chain of hospitals. We have all the varieties of hospital over here. If a startup or an organization needs to implement this model in India, how the scale will look like, what should be their approach?
I think the first thing is like having the investment and the infrastructure for a scanner, which is the
Hmm.
whole side image scanner, and then maybe recruiting like few lab technicians to scan the digitized images. Because when it comes to software, that could be decentralized, it could be universal. For example, our platform is being used by some members in like Europe and Singapore and Middle East, and even in India. So I think the only thing that comes into play is, okay, how can you install like these like mini digital pathology labs. And actually, what came out of the Times of India article was I got approached by an NGO in from New Delhi, where they are highly interested in setting up like a remote digital pathology lab within a tier two, tier three city, and doing like a very small pilot and take the physical glass slides from village like patients from villages and
Mm.
digitize them and send it to a pathologist sitting in Ames or
Yeah.
Mumbai. So actually, as
Mm.
we speak, we are in conversations of doing that. And now
Wow.
I think like small successes like this, it's sort of like snowballs. Like, okay, we
Mm.
see one success in a very small village wherein now they can like, get the diagnosis, like high quality diagnosis, at a record speed. That's a success for us. We want to see like how this goes. But I think,
Mhm.
I always see like, think global, but act local. Like, you can talk about revolutionizing the field, but now like, will it just pick like say 100 people within a village, set up like a digital pathology lab like nearby, have like, small investment over there and start seeing
Mm.
the result. So
Correct, correct. Tell me one thing that if you need to build it for India, okay, so you have built it over there and it's in a CRO setup that you're doing. If
yeah,
you need to build it in India, you said that, okay, just have a scanner, just have one hospital. But if you're running and if you're thinking that, okay, I'm a startup and I need to do it, okay, not just a solution provider kind of a thing, what will be your approach?
I think like first thing is like the infrastructure setup with the scanner, like trained technicians, like optimizing the
Mm.
workflow, because it's like it's continuous like supply chain. The biopsies come in, the physical slides
Yeah.
get processed. Now it like you put it into digital scanner, goes to the cloud, gets accessible through the image viewer and creates like backup copies of the image and all that. So I think once the infrastructure is set up, like how could the pathologist actually start looking at the images on the image viewer instead of a
Mm.
microscope? And I think that would be a quick, easy, not easy I would say, but quick first win for me. And then the next win would be, say the pathologist were they were looking at like 50 cases every single
Mm.
day under the microscope. Now with this, are they able to look at 65 or 70 cases and
Mhm.
easily, not with much burden? So that's a quick second win. Now the third win is now you sort of integrate like AI into the system, and now you sort of like play, okay, without AI they were diagnosing 70. With AI, has this increased to 85, 90 again without like a huge burden and all that? I think that's what I'll be gauging, like, if I'm trying to implement not just India, it could be anywhere else. Like, this is like, because at the end of the day, like, we have to be in touch with the reality, like, see what the pathologist is expecting out of this. But I would say, like, the investment for a scanner, investment for like a platform and cloud service, and few trained technicians, and of course training the pathologist to finally look at
Mm.
those images. I think having that team can actually start accelerating the process.
Like whenever we speak about cancer or any disease per se, we're speaking about saving lives, right? It's just
Yeah.
not a technology that will probably give me a faster internet or anything, right? It's a technology that can save lives. Now, is it wiser to just simply import whatever is available, or reinvent the wheel and then just build it something make in India, made in India, rebuild whole technology? Which one you would go for? Would you think it's just easy to import what's available and
Uh, well, I think so. We have partnered with a scanner which is India based.
Hmm.
So they are based in Bangalore. So and we are using those scanners here in New York,
Hmm.
and for our high throughput scanning. And we have partnered with an AI company based out of Mumbai. And
Hmm.
for a particular like analysis with the US pharma biotech companies, we are using that India based AI company tools within
Hmm.
so it's already happening. So we are already in touch with India and the technology that's being developed within there. So to answer your question, like, is it like, should we import? And I would say, like, for some things it might not be necessary. For example, when it comes to like scanners, because they were like the Philips of the world, like Philips and like Hamamatsu, and all established and well tried and tested. So I think that might not be important. But You cannot rely on an AI system that got US FDA approval to directly integrate into the AI into the Indian system. And I think that's a huge, like, because the AI has to be trained on Indian data, the
Mm,
Indian demographics and different age groups, like, which is so different from the US population. So I
mm,
think that's one thing where we will need like revalidation on the Indian data, Indian pathologists like doing the annotations, because the way US pathologist diagnose is very different from Indian pathologist. Now, if we are integrating a US pathology driven AI, it might confuse the Indian doctors. Like, hey, I
mm,
was never seeing this. Now it comes whole. Okay, should I go to
mm,
US to do my training and specialization, then adopt digital pathology? There's so much of
mm.
confusion. So I think make in India for India and by India for AI would make the most sense, at least like from the validation approach. So
As long as regulations and other things are being taken care,
absolutely,
because building is one, but then our regulations, we need to get approval as well so we can make it available for patients. I see that startups, they take something that's available in US and try to rebuild in India. Okay, and nothing wrong in it. You have Amazon,
yeah.
Flipkart, you have Uber, Ola, it's perfectly fine. But in healthcare it is different. Just now you said that if someone is getting into the digital pathology with AI kind of a space, what are the unmet needs, or what are the gray areas we still have wide open, and what are the areas that are already been done? Don't get into that space. What will be your suggestion for
No, I think that's a very very great question, and I'm just like thinking out loudly here. So I think to answer your second part, which is like been there, done that, and don't
that?
reinvent the wheel, I would say like the scanner would be one such thing, because there is so much of like regulations and back and forth iterations that has gone through in actually digitizing that slide and having a full resolution scope out of it.
Mm,
That's one thing. And I think second thing would be the interoperability between the scanner and the cloud service provider. Now,
mm,
even that is so important. Like, how do you sort of transfer data from the scanner onto your like, cloud service? And that's also like been there, done that. Because now all the cloud service providers are global, because you have
mm,
the Amazons and Google Cloud and all that. So I think that's one thing. So I think having that setup, things are much more like faster. The things that has to be thought through is the adoption of these systems in the Indian sector, which is like slightly different. Like, do we have the infrastructure in place? Do we have, like, for example, if you have to look at these images on on an image viewer, like will this laptop be sufficient? Because again, to give you a
mm,
sense, one single image, the size of it is anywhere between few hundred megabytes to few gigabytes. So that's one image for you. Now, like, to open a high resolution, full resolution image, like what kind of like image viewers or like laptop screens or like monitors do we need? And then comes the internet bandwidth. Like, we still struggle to go to some of the cities and there is no good internet connection to even do like
mm,
a WhatsApp video call. So now, is it possible to actually seamlessly transfer the data to these remote areas? Like, of course, we have like LNs like Starlink and all that, but then can India sort of like come up with its own satellite system to improve the Wi-Fi connectivity and have specifically for healthcare, because there is so much need. So I think these are all like
mm.
futuristic, wherein we can start
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
about it. So
So that's like another discussion I think we
yeah,
should have. I have to conclude the digital pathology as a topic. I have two final questions for you. We have seen the evolution of radiologists. We have
yes.
seen the evolution of surgeons with technology and everything that happened. For pathologists, what do you see? Like in 5 years, how the future look like for a pathologist, a team of, probably the pathology department overall.
And I think this change could be very simple, and you might say, okay, I think that was so obvious, but I think that will take time.
Mm,
Which is
mm,
pathologists like looking at slides on the image viewer than under the microscope. That itself, I think, will take a lot of time, and seeing more and more adoption, and being able to like seamlessly consult or contact pathologists from other areas, other cities. I think if we do that, that's a big win. And I'm
mm,
not even touching about AI being able to do this, do that, and all that. Sure, I think if it comes in, there's an adoption, we will do that. But the AI
mm,
landscape is much bigger, because when we
mm,
talk about cancer, it's multiple organs, multiple cancer types, and so many features being detected and things like that. And I'm not going in that landscape, but I think a simple win would be having this seamless interoperable ecosystem of digital pathology. So
Yeah, yeah. Whenever anyone speak about this AI is going to take away your job, it does if it is for like writing, right?
yeah.
So my core business is into writing, and it,
Okay.
it is definitely been affected by AI for sure.
Right.
Somewhere it helps, somewhere it is businesses are getting affected. But when we look at clinical, especially in India, we have less doctors, we have more people. Cancer
Yeah.
is a big problem. So many patients are getting diagnosed every alternate day. If I want you to give one message to, uh, rather give me two messages, one to probably clinicians, those who are listening to us, and one message to innovators, those who like to listen, probably listening to you and then getting inspired to work on such a thing in India. What will be your message?
I think to one thing for clinicians, we are not here to take away your jobs, but to sort of like help you for a common goal, which is the
Hmm.
patient care, right diagnosis, right treatment, so that we have a happy and healthy world. So I think we understand that for a clinician perspective, adopting to new technologies is outside their routine workflow, and that's why we're trying to sort of inculcate this in the training phase itself. But we are trying to make sure that the adoption of this technology is like smooth for a clinician that will eventually help you for doing the diagnosis. So I would say like the technology is maturing to a point wherein you can actually see value in using it for your day-to-day workflow. I think that's one message. And because I don't want clinicians to have this confusion or the doubt that okay, there is this technology, but will it really help me? Because it has been like tried and tested in multiple settings, and I would say it's being designed to help you. If it's not
Hmm.
for you, then we will not be in this space. So
Yeah.
and of course there is huge gratitude to the clinicians, because we do build it, but the thing is, if they don't use it, then we are of no use. So that's
Hmm.
another thing. So second thing, innovators, I would say, don't shy to talk to the domain experts from very early on. And not just shy. I think it's very important for you to go and talk to them, sit with them, and get their feedback on a very timely basis. Like, of course, if you get like a lot of funding from the government or venture capitalist, you build your own AI system, you cannot be comforted by the fact that, say, with your funding, you employ like, say, 10 pathologists within a hospital, and then you build an AI system that is good only for those pathologists and that hospital. Things have happened like this in US, and if you
Oh.
just look at the news, there are so many articles. It's being
Hmm.
happening as we speak as well, wherein the funding has been obtained by the institution, and then you build AI for the institution. It goes
Hmm.
in circles, right? I would say,
Yeah.
come outside, think from a more broader perspective and talk to the pathologists, see what they're what are the issues, and take those like small steps. To give you a very simple example, we are in the era of Gen AI. Now,
Hmm.
don't jump the gun and start developing LLMs for pathology images directly.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
no pathologist will take your LLM software and try to upload their image and ask questions. There's so
Hmm.
much of like trust factor involved in the back end. What is it trained on? How am I like coming to this? So I would say that's why the technology is moving in one road, digital pathology is going another road, and somewhere they're trying to marry between these two. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I would say take some small sort of like a back step and understand the field first. It's very important, and that's one message to the innovators, wherein start reading medical literature. Don't just read AI papers and don't go just to AI events like India
Hmm.
AI Summit, fantastic, but also go to Oncology Summit, like equally with equal sort of interest and enthusiasm and for learning. So that's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I agree. And if medical professionals are getting into startups, there are many doctors, those who are working closely with technical people, AI scientists and everyone, and they are building the solution together. And I really like that model, because here is somebody who's a ready customer, and he's saying that I have this problem, please solve my problem, and he's
Yeah.
ready to take you to the other customers. Oh my God, that's like a beautiful business. So I always,
Yeah.
always say that not just go and talk to them, find a doctor who has a problem, go solve his problem, he'll take you to the other markets, like
Yeah.
that, right? So I'm so thankful to you for doing what you do.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and especially you're putting efforts to share your knowledge to people over here. I'm passionate about giving the knowledge to, patriot, you can call it, but yes, for doctors in India, patients in India. Thank you so much for doing this, so this conversation reaches to right people.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Smita, to bring me here on this podcast. It was such an insightful discussion. Every time we learn something new, and discussions like this sort of like foster that communication. And I'm sure the audience, they could be clinicians, they could be AI scientists, like they everybody will have something to take from this. And again, I'm more than happy to like leave my like information if you want to reach out, if you want to like talk
Yes,
about
I
initial
will add it.
collaborations, and absolutely. So
Yes,
more than happy to do that. So
perfect.